Welcome to the Parenting Power Podcast, supporting parents with the real-life tools they need to raise the confident, interdependent people the world needs. Gail Bell and Julie Friedman-Smith interview experts who share their knowledge to assist parents in creating a home environment where kids can thrive.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Life Parenting Podcast. I'm Julie Friedman-Smith.
And I'm Gail Bell.
And today's podcast is brought to you by Beaner's Fun Cuts for Kids. Parenting is hard, haircuts shouldn't be. Visit beanersfuncuts.com for a location near you. Today, our guest is Olimpia Mesa. Olimpia is the president of Instructional Design Limited and the founder of Book to Courses Online School, teaching authors to transform a nonfiction book into an online academy. We discovered Olimpia through her book, How People Learn. We read a blog post of hers called The Secret Strings of Our Body, How to Step Out of Fight, Flight, and Freeze Mode. And we're so happy to have Olimpia here today, all the way from Romania, to share with you, our listeners. Welcome, Olimpia.
Hello, everyone. Happy to be with your community today.
Olimpia, can you share with us how you came to write your book?
4 years ago, I thought I will volunteer and work for NGOs in education because we all know that this is necessary worldwide, not only in Romania. So I did that, and meeting teachers and parents and listening to them carefully, I realized there was something they did not have in terms of the principles and everything we know from neuroscience. They knew some of the stuff, but it was difficult for them to explain to children. And they were asked to write a book about it. And I said, the book should be done for kids directly, because everything I was explaining to them, I was using the example of me and my child. I have a 12-year-old son, and I was using everything I knew in my work to help him be a happy and joyful learner, basically. So he was going to school, but every time he needed support, I was there to explain what's going on behind the curtain, meaning in our heads, in the brain. I write the book for kids in between 6 and 12 with lots of examples, and the metaphors and analogies I know work for sure. So this is how everything started. To give you an example, when a child is struggling to learn something or to remember a fact, and this was not easy, I was using this exercise with my son, and I was drawing on this huge poster, only the brain, say this is your brain, and inside I was drawing small neurons, but without the synapses. Every time you try to learn something new synapses are created in between the neurons. And this is how intelligence grows and happens. This is not easy. It's like when we go outside in the forest and there are no roads and we are trying to advance through grass into the forest. So imagine if we would do that again and again, a new road will be created because the grass will then drop, and slowly there's this path and you can see the mud. And then in time, if more people, more kids like you with their parents would go to this special place in the forest, maybe somebody will build a small shop or a library, and one day there's going to be a road. So this is the same way the brain creates new pathways every time we learn something new. And I could see how he was lighting up, face changing, his eyes, everything. And so one day he could say, today it was like being on my way to school and all the lights are on red. This is him reporting back and using the metaphor to explain how it felt. It's easy for kids to relate to this because at a certain age, kids easily go from concrete thinking to abstract thinking. I have realized that this is something that maybe I can help with. It's give parents the language for the experiences their children have during learning so that it's easier to manage.
That is helpful to understand, that building the road, and it takes time to build that road. And sometimes kids want to give up, but we just need to build those neural pathways. That's a great analogy. Olimpia, what led you to write the blog post about helping kids to respond to anxious feelings?
Well, I was on my book tour through Europe, the northern countries, and when you speak to parents, you realize that the problems they're facing are the same. How do we manage the anxiety moments related to learning? So I'm not a therapist. I'm a learning designer, and I was trying to focus any advice I will give today. Also, it's related to anxiety, is related to learning. That just to be clear. So, what do I do when my kid does not want to go to school? He or she does not want to go in front of the class and present a project, and that is because suddenly something happens. And even if 5 minutes ago it was all right, the moment they want to go on stage or in front of the room of the classroom, something happens and it's freeze. And he cannot explain what's going on, but it's not possible to advance with the task. So in those cases, if I were a teacher or I was a parent, I would first of all acknowledge the feeling and just accept it and give him or her a hug. This is not only showing empathy and understanding, this also helps actually physically. The body slows down the breathing. Like imagine I am 5 years old and I'm doing like, so, and I cannot speak, right? So the moment somebody hugs me, very tight for just a few seconds, 5 seconds if possible, it's very difficult for me to do, right? And I would normally slow down. So this also helps physically the body to slow down. And in the moment when you slow down, then magic happens, because this nerve that I speak about in the blog post about the vagus nerve transmits this information to the brain that, slower breathing is needed. And then it goes back down into the body, and the lungs know that a slower breathing should happen. Of course, not from the first move, but the second and the third and so on. So how to explain it even simpler to the kid? The vagus nerve, if we translate from Latin, means wandering. And it actually starts at the top of the spinal cord and is wandering around all the internal digestive system, all the organs basically. Usually in learning, we use analogies that help transform abstract concepts into concrete concepts, and that helps in understanding some concepts that are new. And I thought about any instrument that has strings. Show the instrument to the child. This has to be done in advance. You can prepare this. This is parenting for me, helping children understand how the body works. We actually have a guitar at home, but it's useful if the child could actually touch it. And if you put it next to a child, you can start this conversation very early on, even when the kid is 3.5, in a playful way. So here you see this guitar, and say, yeah, we have a nerve inside it that looks very much like this. And every time you are scared of something, because it's the similar effect, the strings go like this, and you go, zang, 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 and you feel this in your entire body. Can you feel the tension? Yes. And then if you press with your hand, then what happens with the strings? They stop making noises. Good. So that's why mommy will give you a hug. And then what you can do for yourself without my help is breathe slowly, and then your entire body touches the strings inside you and calms them down, and they don't shout like that anymore. It depends on the age of the kid, of course, also. In time, you can do exercises to manage the strings. Once the kid imagines this and knows what you talk about, because you have the language, then you can go into exercising, like you have a candle, and then you try to breathe next to the candle, but without moving much the flame, if possible. Yeah, and this is very funny for kids, because they're, oh my God, I don't have mine. So can you light it up again and again and again? And they try to breathe into the candle, but without even moving. That's how slow it should be. And then they remember things. But this is also done through training. Like we train our kids to brush their teeth, right? We do that for quite some years on the planet. I mean, for how many years do you think? For quite some years. And they know what we talk about because they can see us. Then my question is, did your kid ever see you breathing into a candle and doing, not necessarily meditation, doing this breathing exercise when you are anxious? If they don't see you, then it's not the same as when they see you brushing your teeth. So you're not a role model for them. So that's why it's a lot of training. And then when the moment comes and I have to go on stage, or my son does martial arts and there are all kind of contests and stuff like that, and the emotions kick in and the anxiety, then we don't even use the strings anymore. I'm just saying, Vegas, 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 baby. So come on. And he knows what we talk about.
Olimpia, what you've shared is so real. The fact that we have feelings that are real, and totally agree with you about the modeling. Kids learn what they live, and that connection with the hug. So such good ideas, and the repetition and the practicing helps so much, just like in any aspect of life. Olimpia, we always ask our guests to share a real life parenting tool that they've used. Do you have one quick one to share?
Again, my parenting tools are related to learning mostly. So if you have very small kids, it's very important to understand if they switched from, they are at the age of concrete thinking, or they are switching to abstract, or what. And this happens usually, could be 10 years old for some kids, not necessarily at 12 or, for 13. For some kids, it's even earlier. And so it is very important to pay attention to the language you're using or the signs the child gives you. Let me give you an example. So my husband reads a lot, and he uses a lot of scientific, very abstract words, which is good, right? But when your child is 3 years old, 3.5, starting to understand the world through its physicality, like through the physical things that they need to discover first, when you say, let's go to your room, and it's a bedroom, and he starts crying or she starts crying, then you say, wow, what's going on? And you try to explain that the agenda is this of the day, and you're using adult words. While for the kid, might be crying because a bedroom means going to sleep. Doesn't matter what the time is. They do not understand the time. For them, going to that specific room, it's something very specific. It's going to bed sometimes. In our case, that is because we work in the living room. So going to upstairs is like going to sleep, even if it's the middle of the day. But they do not know these concepts when they are 3 years old. And the kid might start crying. You don't know why. Like you say, it's a tantrum. Well, of course it is, because he does not want to go to sleep. And then when they grow older, we ask them to calm down. What is calm down for a 4 years old? It's a very abstract concept. And so I would pay attention to languages.
For sure. You've given us so many things to think about, and we do have to use age-appropriate language. And at Parenting Power, we actually work a lot with families around the language of parenting and what makes sense for a child at every age. So thank you for reinforcing that concept and just reminding us that kids are changing all the time, and we really need to meet them where they are. Thank you, Olimpia. If our listeners want to follow you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Google How People Learn book.
Thank you, Olimpia, for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me in your community. I've Googled it. It's beautiful. And I hope this is going to continue, because we definitely need people to do the same, give parents the language and the tools for the experiences their children have every day.
Thanks, Olimpia. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Real Life Parenting Podcast. If you're looking for more real life parenting tools, then please sign up for our weekly Thoughtful Thursday email newsletter. It's free and it's really good. Just visit our website, parentingpower.ca, to subscribe. While you're there, check out our book, A Year of Intentional Parenting. Like this podcast, the book was created to help you feel confident, capable, and calm. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you again right here every Monday.